Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar, 3 Plays to Boost Marketing Performance Now for Learning and Training Companies. My name is Barbara Sanner, and I'll be the moderator today, as well as one of the presenters. It's great to see so many of you joining us from locations around the country and around the world. Welcome to everyone. We want our session today to be as interactive as possible, so we hope that you'll take a few minutes to ask questions as they occur to you. At the bottom of the Zoom panel should be a button that has Q&A. Just click that and type your question into that area, and we'll address questions toward the end of today's session. And if we don't get to your question in particular, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. Also, we hope you'll take a few minutes at the end of our presentation today to submit your responses in our survey. Your information and feedback is very important to us. Now I'd like to introduce you to our panelists who are joining from locations throughout the United States today. Scott Hornstein is founder of Hornstein Associates based in Virginia. Scott is an international marketer, author, and lecturer. He brings his experience and expertise in marketing, research, and story creation, and his most recent book is Opt-in Marketing. I'd also like to introduce Gordon Johnson, who has been in the learning, development, and training industries for most of his career. Gordon is based in North Carolina and has worked with many well-known learning companies. He's the founder of Flashworks Marketing and is an expert in marketing strategy, content marketing, lead generation, and AI-driven productivity. And I'm the founder of Complete Marketing Solutions, a business-to-business agency that delivers marketing strategy and implementation, everything from advertising to webinars. We're based in Arizona, and we've been working in the learning and training industry since 2011. Together, the three of us have collaborated to bring you our top 3 plays to improve your marketing performance now, to help you get more leads, more customers, and ultimately more revenue. Our insights today are born out of experience and the school of hard knocks, if you will. There's no theory here. It's all tried and true performance-based insight. So let's get started with our first topic. I'd like to turn things over to Scott Hornstein, who will share his insights on ABM, account-based marketing. ABM has a critical place in every go-to-market strategy, and it will help you build your business toward long-term success. Scott?
Thank you. I would like to talk to you about ABM, but the first thing I want to talk to you about, which is on the next slide, is what are you doing to identify, to nurture, to bring on board your next best customer? Now, I believe that you all know who your best customers are, but who's next in line? And when I ask this question to many of my customers, they go, well, not a whole lot. I'm going to suggest to you that ABM, or account-based marketing, is the tactic that you can deploy to do just that. Now, ABM is a very precise, targeted, personalized, and measurable process. It's acquisition. Its focus is on a specific set of high-value prospects, the people who look like your best customers. Now, here's where marketing and sales have to collaborate and coordinate to deliver an increasingly personalized experience, because these are the people that we want. Let's move to the next slide and see what's going on. Now, what we've got here is a word cloud or a word salad of all the 3-letter acronyms I could think of at the moment. But there are a few that are very important that I'm going to direct your attention to. The first one, of course, is ABM. account-based marketing. The next one, which is at the center of the success, is ICP. No, that is not Insane Clown Posse. It is your ideal customer profile, or how well you can describe those customers who bring in the greatest profit, not revenue, but profit. Now, also in here, you're going to see TAM, TAM, or the total addressable market, and CLV, customer lifetime value. Now, if you suspect that what I'm going to do here is to drag you from the present into the future to advocate for longer-term thinking and longer-term strategies, well, you are absolutely right. And I'm going to come back to this ICP because the ICP is your GPS for profitability. Let's go a little further into this on the next slide. Excuse me. This shows the arc of personalization, and personalization has always been a buzzword. Personalization, when we're on the left and talking about the TAM, or the total addressable market, well, we tend to be concentrating on the other three-letter acronym, FAM, which is fog a mirror. Target market is wide, target market is broad. Many people have said, I've never met a sale I didn't like. We need to refine this. It's too broad, and there are our next best customers lurking in there. We need to find where they're lurking. So the ICP is going to help us to get deeper and more profitably into targeted institutions. When we say personalization, when we start off here on the left, our idea of personalization is generally Dear Santa, because we don't know much more. We have made assumptions. We're out there swinging for the fences. And I understand that, because in the early stages of corporate maturity, well, it's, hey, what's the net new? How many sales did we make today? But sales are going to generate revenue, and what we're after right now is profit. So let's think about that ICP again, because not every prospect is going to turn into a long-term relationship. What we want to do is we want to find those people who do. So the next step we take is to do research and to get in touch with the personas, or what are the archetypes of the people who are making a decision? Who are the senders? Who are the approvers? Who are the learners? What are their responsibilities in here to the corporation? What are their responsibilities to themselves? What are the drivers? What are they looking for? How do they express what they need? Now, from this, we construct a consideration journey or a buying journey, and we try and use content marketing to populate that consideration journey with what folks need to move on to the next step and eventually hire us for training. Well, with ABM, we're going to go one step further, and we're going to start meeting the actual people and talking to those actual people. Even though they are annoying customers, but we have to talk to them. So let's go to the next slide and see what we do with all this. ABM is all about acquiring revenue. And so what we're going to do is to take these companies, and we're going to treat them, and it might be a company, it might be a group, it might be a cohort that represents your next best customer, and we're going to treat them as a market of one. We spoke about research, and we have to do modeling. let's go back to those three-letter acronyms. And we want to measure CLV, or customer lifetime value. What are the components? What are the attributes? What is the taxonomy of those companies that have the greatest customer lifetime value? Another way of expressing customer lifetime value is I want to find the customers that stay longer and buy more. Skipping down a bit, how is this all possible? It's only possible with the commitment of higher management. Nothing happens unless they walk the talk. And what they must do is implement the systems of measurement and accountability so the ABM process gets a chance to flourish and mature while everybody else is looking at, well, what did you sell today? The next slide, please. Why ABM? Because you're building for a profitable future. You're finding, you're nurturing the set of your next best customers. Now, here's an interesting aside. Many times when I talk to our customers, about where they are with their next best customer, they say, well, we got a lot of sales, and this group over here represents the largest component of our customer base, but that's not who we really want. Well, good luck with that. With ABM, we're going to go for a more efficient, more productive use of our resources and generate the highest ROI of any of these tactics. Where do we want to end up? Well, I mentioned research to you before. And when doing research on behalf of one training company, I was interviewing a very highly placed individual in prospect company, a customer company. And I said, you know that I am representing customer A. And what I'd like to ask you is, what is the most important value that you get from company A? And what they said to me is, my salesperson. My salesperson is part of our team. They understand what we need, what we want, and they help us get it. And that's where you want to be. Well, we are now up to our next presentation, and I have an introduction written down, and we're going to throw that right away. I would like to introduce you to Barbara Sanner. First, I would like to say what a privilege it is to be on a panel here with these two talented and accomplished individuals. Barbara, I've known for some time, and if there is a client situation where we're looking to optimize, where we're looking to find out what has gone wrong and what should be going right, I turn to Barbara. She's going to discuss email marketing, and email marketing is lots of people sneeze on it, and yet it is the backbone of our ability to communicate with our marketplace. Barbara is going to show us how to consistently deliver strong results. Isn't that right, Barbara?
Thanks, Scott. Yes, that's exactly right. We're going to talk about email marketing today, and I love how you phrased that, the backbone of good marketing strategy. That's fantastic. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel with you today, and Gordon as well. I've worked with both of you for so long, and I appreciate that great introduction. Thank you so much. So yes, let's talk today a little bit about email marketing and why email marketing is not dead. It is, in fact, very much alive. Our inboxes back in the day were easy to keep clean. We were able to process all of the emails and respond to them in our inbox, and end the day with a nice clean inbox and start the next day anew. And it's not so easy anymore. There's so much spam coming in, a lot of phishing coming in, phishing emails coming in. And so that has prompted people to declare that email marketing is dead. However, we disagree. And as you'll see on the next slide, we really believe that email marketing is a critical part of an omni-channel marketing strategy. And we'll talk about that here for a minute. The marketing rule of 7 says that it takes 7 touch points before a person will start to pay attention to the message that you are trying to convey. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of messages to get out there. And so it's important to do that across different channels, whether it be social media, email marketing, advertising, whatever it might be. And that number is actually approaching 8 times now. So people may be paying attention to social media, but not to email, or paying attention to email and not advertising. So we have to blend all of that together in order to reach the ideal customer, as Scott was just discussing, and make sure that our messaging gets across to them. So why use email marketing? Since we know it is alive, why should we use it? And on the next slide, we'll see that a successful marketing strategy really relies on email. It is critical. What are the 3 things that you check every day, probably multiple times a day, more than anything else? Your email, your text messages, and your voicemail messages. We all pay attention to those and process those. And so even if a particular email is not being read, it's still out there in front of the target audience. And that's important because unless someone unsubscribes, that means they're still interested in your message and what you have to say, even if they're not particularly reading the message of the day that you have sent. So staying subscribed shows interest in your brand, and you have an opportunity to reach those people. Email marketing is also very cost effective. You can get a contact with an email address for about 75 cents from a reputable list broker. And yes, there are reputable list brokers out there still. And of course, there's ways to gain contacts organically too, but it's very cost effective to build an email list. And then it takes about, I don't know, 1 to 5 cents to send to a particular contact, depending on the email system that you have. So even Google Ads cannot deliver that. Typical conversions cost anywhere from $5 to $8 with Google Ads, and that relies on people searching for your product versus automatically receiving your message because you are targeting them. So it's a very productive way to go about your marketing. But it's important to be strategic in what you're doing. We don't want to do any kind of spamming, of course. We want our messages to be relevant, and that will help build the brand, build the awareness, and ultimately prompt your target customer to take action. So next, we'll see our 4 proven steps to help increase your return on email marketing. And to start off, we want to be sure we're getting our message designed in a way that is prompting action. It's okay to send informational emails now and then that don't particularly request someone to take action from the email, but most of the time we want to be requesting action in some way from our target audience. And so to do that, we pay attention to the different components of an email. The subject line is designed to prompt the recipient to open the email. The email content prompts the recipient to click through. What they click through prompts the recipient to take further action with your product, service, your brand, whatever it might be. So we start with the end in mind and we work backwards. We probably have a great website that has good content on it already, and that's the perfect starting point for any type of email campaign because we've already written that content, we already have images for that, and it's easy to draw from there. So that content could be anything. It could be a page on the website. It could be a landing page that's dedicated to one topic, video on YouTube, long form content on LinkedIn, or an article, whatever it might be. But we can direct to that existing content we already have. Extracting from that, we take smaller bits and pieces of that content and the images, and that's what creates our email for us. We want to provide some information in a compelling way that prompts people to click through and gets to more of the detail for us. Part of that is by keeping the email short but informative, and leave them wanting more. We don't want to provide everything in the email itself, unless that's its key purpose, of course. But most of the time we want them to click through to get more information. So adding compelling calls to action are important. Taking that link and embedding it in different parts of the email behind text, images, buttons, whatever it might be. You can also direct to other parts of the website too, to your home page or the About page, if that's important. And just designing it so that we leave them wanting more and we have them click through. And then last but certainly not least, and very importantly, is creating an interesting subject line. It needs to be short but intriguing. Ideally under 80 characters, not long. And there are a number of free subject line testers available on the internet, which I would encourage you to use. You simply type in your subject line and the system will, using AI, will tell you how you could improve that particular subject line with more words of urgency or making it shorter, whatever it might be. After the email is sent, then on the next slide, we'll see that it's important to analyze our audience behavior. And this is critical because it really directs where your marketing is going to go from there, what types of messaging can be used next. If you don't utilize the results and take a look at them, you're really missing a lot of insight as to what your audience is tuned into. It's important to know the different metrics behind email marketing campaigns, a hard bounce from a soft bounce, a regular clicker from a unique clicker, etc. And then looking at that data over time to see what your audience is tuned into. And once you get the hang of looking at those trends, your next email campaign is typically obvious. It's evident to you and easy for you to create the next one from there. It's important to follow up with the unique clickers in particular, aside from the greater target audience that you initially emailed, because they've expressed an interest in something in your first email. So you can email them directly, which is ideal, with another offer or another more detailed message to address the topic that they just clicked through on. And there's other actions that you can take as well. Going to LinkedIn and looking them up and asking to connect with them in a very hands-off kind of manner, emailing them directly with a one-to-one message, calling them if you have phone numbers and trying to connect that way. But somehow engaging with them to start to move them through the funnel to become a customer for you. And then, of course, you want to start to create your next email to your entire contact list, including your unique clickers, which again is often evident based on the analysis that you've done from your initial email that you send. And so our key takeaway here is that email marketing is really a critical part of the marketing strategy and should not be dismissed because it really works, and it's a highly cost-effective lead generator that can really benefit your company in the long run. Now I'd like to just take a moment to introduce our last presenter today, Gordon Johnson. He is the seasoned founder of Flashworks Marketing and has more than 20 years of experience in marketing for learning technology and training companies. Gordon will delve into his favorite marketing strategy, customer marketing, and will show you how this approach drives customer growth, boosts referrals, and increases customer retention. It's an awesome subject. I'll turn it over to Gordon.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you to everybody who's out there listening to us today. Really appreciate you joining us. The reason why this is my #1 marketing strategy is it's by far the most overlooked. I have yet to walk into a company that has a very proactive strategy with what we're going to talk about today. And also it's the most profitable by far of all the marketing strategies. So if you have no money for marketing today, this is the first thing that you would choose to start with. All right. The reason for that and why that is so our ongoing chase for new names, new leads, new logos. In order for us to grow, everything has to be new. And so show you some stats on this. So 44% of companies focus on customer acquisition, while only 18% focus on customer retention, which is a little bit backwards, right? Some other crazy stats on this. So getting a new customer 5 times as expensive as retaining an existing customer. And I've heard this is as high as 25 times more expensive, which is, it's a big number. The chance of selling to a new prospect is between 5 and 20% on average, while selling to a customer, 60 to 70%. That you're upselling, cross-selling, whatever it may be. And what the result of this is, if you are selling to new customers, actively doing this, so increasing customer retention, basically, by just 5%, increase profits by 25 to 95%. And that's for the whole company, increasing those profits. It's unbelievable, really. But what is customer marketing? Because everybody has a different definition for what this means. And here's mine it's in 3 parts. One is actually retaining your customers. So, and that's the most profitable thing that you can do. So if you don't lose new customers, you don't have to replace them with something that costs, 5 to 20 times as much to replace them. And then of course, upselling, which you have a very high probability of upselling versus getting a new customer. And then generating referrals from your customer. By far the best leads you'll ever get there, right? Let's talk first about that first bucket, customer retention. So here's a whole long laundry list, just a few things actually, of things that you do to retain customers. And there's a lot more, but renewal campaigns, especially if you're a product company, of course. Now, if you're a services company, it's a little bit different. But the services begin and end sometimes, if it's a project or whatever. So having some sort of campaign to renew, or knowing when's the right time to talk to them about renewing, going to a different project, whatever it may be. And then community development. And this seems to be a bigger one than anything else, because especially for product companies, building a community of people who can share ideas about how they're using that product, what features they're using. Whenever I'm a part of a community like this, I'm always just so surprised to hear somebody say, I'm using this product to do this. And somebody else says, really, I've never even tried that before. And they tell them how to do that. And before you know it, they're using a higher percentage of your product, which is the key, right? Loyalty programs. So loyalty programs, when you think of loyalty programs, you think of more B2C marketing, where you're marketing credit card or cell service or something like that. But it has a really big place also in B2B marketing, because it can be anything from, obviously, discounts we think of first as a loyalty. Longer you've been here, better pricing you get and things like that. But it could be upgraded service. It could be something that only they have access, sort of VIP access to a certain type of product or something like that, or additional resources or whatever it may be, but still an important thing. The big one in my mind is product education. Again, this is for product companies. This is huge, because I heard a statistic that somewhere for people using a software program, they're using only about 5 to 10% of the functionality of that. I can't remember where I heard that from. I think it was a Microsoft Excel thing or a Word thing or something like that. which is amazing when you think about it, because people are only using 5 to 10% of your product, and you design, put so much effort into all this great functionality. They're really probably not going to be customers for very much longer. And so knowing this and educating them, and of course, it all starts with customer onboarding. That's the most important part, so that you can get them up quickly. But educating them through the process and giving them resources they need is critical, of course, to retention. And here's another thing you don't think about it as being critical to retention, but NPS surveys. I think a lot of you might be familiar with what this is, because I believe 2/3 of all US companies are using NPS surveys on a regular basis. And if you're not familiar with what this is, basically a survey that you send it out regularly, maybe twice a year or so. That's really, I think, kind of the sweet spot when you should be sending them out. You send it out and you ask them, would you recommend our product to someone else? And there's a couple of other questions too, but that's an important question. And the higher the score that they give you on that, whether they would recommend you, the more likely they are a happy customer. And so that's a way to judge. If they give you a 10 or a 9, then on that 0 to 10 scale, then they're a happy customer. If it's below that, they're not happy. And this, researchers have found that this is pretty much the #1 thing to ask a customer to find out if they're truly happy with your product, whether they're going to recommend you or not. And the important thing here, and why we bring it up for customer retention, is a lot of times you're really not going to know how happy your customer is just through day-to-day activity. Most customers are going to leave you quietly. There are, of course, the loud, obnoxious customers who are complaining all the time and things like that. Usually they're the ones that are going to stick around because they're complaining because it's important to them to get it right. It's the ones who are not complaining that you have to worry about. And so whether they recommend you is extremely important. And that kind of brings us on to the next bucket, which is customer referrals. So going back to, the NPS score previously, if you know they're unhappy, then you can take action on that. And usually it's like a red herring, well, not a red herring, a canary in a coal mine, right? It's a pre-indicator of whether you're going to lose that customer or not. So the same thing applies for customer referrals, getting customer referrals, and knowing when to ask for customer referrals. That's the important part here. Because if a customer is happy, you ask for referrals. If the customer is not happy, you don't ask for referrals. It's that simple. And the thing is all your customers throughout your entire customer life cycle, they will go back and forth between happy, unhappy. Some will never be unhappy, but they'll go back and forth between whether they would give you a referral or not. And so it's important to know when the right time is. So if they say they're really happy, that's the right time. It's also important, as far as for referrals go, that there's 2 different types of referrals, really, in broad buckets. There's an external referral where somebody recommends somebody at another company who's similar size company, or somebody they know who they also need this product, they also need this service. But there's also the internal as well. So it's the internal being somebody at your company, a different division, different group, different department, whatever it may be. And I've seen some amazing things happen in this area, to where one of our salespeople sold into a really big software company, into one group of that software company. Within 2 years, they had sold into 17 different groups within that company, and it was 10 times the revenue. And it was that, what you might call that land and expand strategy, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But extremely important to get those internal and external ones. But the biggest roadblock to getting referrals is just not asking. And for some reason, we as humans have a hard time asking for a referral, for somebody to recommend us somebody or tell us who could use that service or who could use that product, who would benefit from it. It's just not asked very much. And what I found through experience on this is the only way to get that thing asked, that question asked, is there needs to be incentives, at least to get them started. Of course, there needs to be education on how to ask, when to ask, things like that. But incentives for your team and sometimes for your customers. Although I kind of go back and forth. For some customers, it's not a good idea because some companies just can't take any kind of incentives. It could be like a discount on the product, of course, or some sort of upgraded service or something like that. But very few really feel good about taking cash or prizes. So I kind of avoid that. Sometimes, though, donating charity is the next best thing. And that's actually a win-win for both sides. And so that's an option as well. So let's look at the third bucket, is upselling. And let's talk about really different types of upselling. So you've got upselling, which is trying to get somebody to buy more of the same product they're already buying from you, a bigger project that's the same project. And cross-selling, of course, is selling different types of products that are related somehow. But then you've got account expansion, which is more of a referral thing, right? What we talked about before, it's selling to different people or different units, departments within that organization. Some call this the land and expand strategy, where their goal is to first, let's get a new customer in small project or a small purchase, and then let's expand out from them once they see how great our product is. Now, exclusive offers are another big one too. This can be a lot of different things. And I tell you, the thing that annoys me more than anything is when you're a customer and new customers are getting discounts that you're not getting. It's kind of like being a Verizon customer. I see all these discount offers out there for new customers only. And it kind of makes you mad, when you're a 20-year Verizon customer. And it's same in B2B. Of course, the exclusive offers just for your customers are a wonderful thing. The challenge here, though, what I've found in upselling is actually finding the opportunities in the first place to upsell. And I'll tell you, if a salesperson hears about an opportunity, they have quite the radar, right, to detect opportunities, and they run with it as soon as they see opportunities. What I found is other people who are on the front lines with customers, like account managers, customer success people, customer satisfaction support, things like that, they might hear an opportunity and say, oh, we should be able to do that for them, but they don't escalate it necessarily, or they don't take it to a salesperson, or they don't sell it themselves. So it's extremely important to get people really good at recognizing not just opportunities, but the importance of recognizing an opportunity and how that's the lifeblood of the company, is growing within an account. So that's a lot of things. I wanted to kind of boil it down into a few steps that you can take today. Number one, by far, is you've got to have some sort of net promoter score, some sort of survey that's going out about this on a regular basis, because that feeds into all the different things that I just talked about. It tells you when the right time to upsell is, when the right time to get referrals, and a lot of other different things. The second one, product education, especially obviously for product companies, that having an educated customer means you're going to have a customer that sticks around almost in every category. Uneducated customers don't stick around. And having the resources that go with that too. And then the third thing I would do, and these things are relatively quick, but the third thing I would do, have to have incentives for referrals. It just doesn't happen without that, even for salespeople. But incentives for other people on your team to get referrals, and also incentives for identifying opportunities, which is fairly the same thing. Well, the last thing I'll leave you with is this key takeaway. You just, if you've heard everything I've said today, but just remember, when you're trying to sell this internally, customer marketing is only 5 to 20% of the cost of getting new customers. Of course, it's not as scalable as getting new customers, but who has $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to grow their business really fast through getting new customer acquisition versus doing things that cost very little money? And that's why you see the 5 to 20% cost, and growing customers and keeping customers, and who are going to be happier being with you and tell other people great things about you. So let's move on to Q&A. Scott and Barbara, will you join me here? And Barbara, maybe you can tell us what questions we have.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's a great presentation, Gordon, and a lot of good areas to think about with customer marketing, definitely. Thank you for that. So we do have a few questions that have come in already from our participants. Thank you all for sending your questions in. Keep them coming. We'll try to get to as many of them today as we possibly can. Our first question today looks like it is for Scott, related to account-based marketing. Sarah is asking, is account-based marketing just a prospecting strategy?
You know, that's absolutely a good question. Thank you, Sarah. It's not exactly a prospecting strategy, and it's not exactly a customer marketing strategy. It's one that acquires revenue. Our focus here is long-term and moving into revenue. And by the way, if you're in a company and what you are really hoping for, like Figma is a 3 to 5 year churn, even the PE companies want to see what is your profitability, not just the revenue that you're generating, but the profitability.
Interesting. Excellent. Thank you so much. And we have a question here for you, Gordon, related to customer marketing. Mike in Chicago is asking, what types of content are most effective for customer marketing?
Oh, good. That's a good question, because it's actually, it depends on the company. So you think about a product company, the best content for product companies is content that's going to make them use more of the product, meaning content that educates them on and gives them use cases, maybe case studies on here's the best practices that other companies, here's what they're using, even new feature education. Now, of course, it's very different for a services company, right? And what I've found, the best content for a services company, whether it be a training services that you offer or custom content development or something like that, but it's content that shows your expertise, shows you know what you're doing. Now, won't
That's
go
right.
far further than that, but something that demonstrates to them that you know what you're talking about, because your low price competitors do not have that content because they can't demonstrate that. If they're super low price, they don't have the thought leaders, the experts that you do. If you do, in fact, have those thought leaders and experts.
Interesting. Excellent. Thank you so much. There's another question here, Gordon, for you.
Right.
Debbie is asking, what strategies are effective for re-engaging inactive or lapsed customers?
Oh, tough one. Yeah. Well, it's less. Thank you for that. That's a great question, because this is a hard one. It's less about strategies, I think, and more about sort of a frame of mind you have to have. So you think about selling a new customer. You've got a process for selling a new customer. A salesperson works with them, gives them a solution, things like that. For a customer who's stopped using your product, there needs to be first an early warning signal that goes off.
That's right.
Lots of times that's the NPS surveys. That works better than anything I've ever seen, because a lot of times people are quiet. They won't tell you that they're unhappy. They don't want to offend you, right? They're just going to stop paying you very soon. And so there needs to be sort of a fire drill that goes on when you get to the point where people are unhappy, to where as much effort was put into selling that person has to be put into retaining that person too. So it needs to be sort of fire drill sort of thing. And that could be just salesperson contacting them and saying, hey, how's it going? We haven't talked for a while, which is usually the case, right? We haven't talked for a while. Love to hear what's going on. It looks like you haven't been using the product. And there's other ways to do this without a salesperson, but it's that important where you have to get humans involved too, I think. So that's my best answer for that one.
Yeah, I definitely think that personal connection, contact with them is just critical for that. Absolutely.
I would like to just add one thing to Gordon's wise words, and that is the NPS study has to be implemented on a regular basis. You can't, it's not a one-off. It's something that you do regularly.
Yeah, I would agree with that totally. Again, just like with anything, those metrics over time are going to really indicate the direction that you're headed with your customers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a great question here for email marketing from Simon. What can I do to make an email not look like spam? And that's kind of a very fine line, especially with all of the spoofing and phishing emails that are coming in now that can look very suspect. One of the main things that I have found is to not put certain links at the top of the email. So email systems will prompt you to include a link that says view in a browser, for example. And you should absolutely have view in a browser in your email, but put it at the bottom because that view in a browser immediately triggers email systems. Oh, this is a marketing email. It could be spam. Let's just put it into the spam or junk folder. And that's definitely not where you want your emails to end up. So it's okay to have a link at the top, perhaps behind your logo, but keep those other system links in other places further down in the email. Good question. Here's another one for you, Scott, with ABM. Doesn't ABM vastly increase the cost of acquisition, COA?
Well, it not only increases the cost of acquisition, but it sort of changes the equation. Cost of acquisition, usually what we look at is not only the volume of the cost, but how long it takes to amortize that cost. Because after the amortization, that's when we start making money. In this case, yes, we are increasing the cost of acquisition, but what we're doing is to do that so that we make a lot more money in revenue, in profit rather, at the end.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Another question has come in on email marketing from Crystal. Thank you, Crystal. How much should I talk about my product in an email? That's a really good question. We want to be able to provide some information so that it piques the interest of the recipient who is reading the email. So certain key parts of your product or features of your product, your main selling points should be included in the email. So my software system does this, or our services provide that. And that's going to pique their interest to get them to read more. But when they want to know more about the services that you offer, that's what needs to be provided on your website or in an article or in a video, whatever it might be. So keeping that more in-depth explanation for another medium is really important. So a little bit, I guess the answer is a little bit, talk about it, but not too much. Yeah. Let's see, Gordon. Stephen is asking, how do you measure the effectiveness of customer marketing? That's a really good question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I will say that the challenges of doing that, measuring the effectiveness of customer marketing, is one of the big reasons a lot of companies don't put the right amount of effort into customer marketing, because it's not a, you get a Google ad, you pay for a Google ad, you get a lead, it converts, blah, blah, blah. You can measure all this, very controllable, right? And customer marketing is not that way. And so what I've found is the only way really to measure it, and there's a lot of different things that you can measure, but the only way to effectively measure it is really the impact on retention. You know, what percentage of customers are you retaining today? Once you, a year from now, what percentage are you retaining? And then also, of course, upselling, you know, how are customers growing, or are they getting smaller? And you can easily measure those things today. They're big numbers and they're super important to the company already, what that retention rate is and everything. Everybody knows, every CEO knows what that retention rate is, right? Or they'd be in real trouble when they get in front of that board of directors who ask that question. So I think those two things are what to measure: retention and average size of customer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. Excellent. We have one more question before I think we're going to need to wrap it up here. If we didn't get to your question today, we'll definitely follow up with you afterwards. Annie is asking, how do you get marketing and sales to work together? Boy, that's a loaded question.
Yes, and it's a question for the ages. I think since I started off in business, people have been asking that question, and I think that we've tried everything, including threats, including kidnapping of spouses and children. You know, I understand why we have to talk to those annoying customers, but I'm going to draw the line at talking to sales. There's really only one way. After all the negotiation, after all of the whatever, the noise that goes on, there has to be a common set of measurement and compensation. And if we don't have that, they're not going to get along. It's as difficult as a simple answer can possibly be.
I agree. And I think education on both sides between marketing and sales and personal interaction goes a long way with that
Yes.
as well. Yeah. Well, we
You know,
wanted
it goes a long way as well. One thing that we used to do that seems to have fallen beside the wayside is to have sales and marketing go on calls together and show up at the customer's desk together.
Yeah.
That promotes great understanding because there's one common denominator there, and that is the customer.
Mhm.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Just
No, that's good. And I would just add on to that. Marketing people and salespeople going on technical calls as well. If it
Yes.
happens to be a software application or something that is technical, just going and listening to that interaction and hearing what the customer has to say can really boost your sales and marketing efforts because you get those insights on a personal level. So, yeah. Thank you. We wanted to make sure that you saw the book that we have available on our previous slide here. It's available for download, 10 marketing strategies you can't live without. Visit the website here at flashworksmarketing.com and you can download that ebook. And we hope that you'll contact us for whatever marketing needs you have, whether it's on ABM, customer marketing strategies, or email marketing, or whatever it happens to be. We have expertise in many, many areas of marketing for learning and training industries, and we're happy to help. So we hope to hear from you soon. Contact us at flashworksmarketing.com. Just fill in the contact form there, or feel free to call us as well. We're always happy to talk. Thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you're located. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.